So what do I mean by top heavy weight classes? Well, that pretty much just means, whenever I say top heavy, is that there's a clear difference between the top guys, the number 1, number 2, number 3 ranked guys, and then the next tier. So in my opinion, these may be the toughest to win. And depending on how you look at this, maybe you say these are the toughest weight classes. And I get why you say that. I'm not saying that they're the toughest weight classes, but certainly they're some of the toughest to win. And the first of that is 125 pounds. At 125 pounds, and before I actually get into this, I want to tell you that this segment is brought to you by channel supporter Daryl Talley, who just recently became a channel supporter right here on the Fanco Wrestling YouTube channel. He's helping to fund and support the channel as a channel supporter. He also gets to use the exclusive Fanco Wrestling emojis during the live chats of the Fanco Wrestling show every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. It's awesome that Daryl's able to support the show. Just subscribed and actually helped the channel last week. So at 125, arguably I think this is the most top heavy because, yeah, you have the number 1 guy, Spencer Lee, and not just the number 1 at the weight, but the number 1 pound for pound in the entire country. So Spencer Lee, number 1 pound for pound in the entire country. I mean, it's just been so fun to watch him wrestle this year, right? I mean, winning every match by fall so far. The multiple-time NCAA champ and Hodge Trophy winner. It has made 125 pounds. He's made everybody else kind of flee away from him. Now, it's become a race for second, and there are still some guys who haven't wrestled Spencer Lee this year. One guy, Sam Latona, the redshirt freshman, has backed. He's kind of that, begins that next tier. And at 125, the next tier, I guess, would be the number 2 through 5, 6, 7. After that, you can make some arguments, but it's just crazy that Spencer Lee has really pushed ahead this much. So Latona has back-to-back wins over Camachos, Jacob Camacho and Colton Camacho of Pitt. His big win over NC State's Jacob Camacho, that was a crazy victory for Virginia Tech's Sam Latona. Those guys are number 2 and number 3, and the ACC is a lot of fun here. And other news in the weight, Brandon Courtney is undefeated of Arizona State. Drew Hildebrand of Central Michigan, also undefeated currently on the season. His best win over Connor Brown of Mizzou. And Brody Teske is another name that I think is worth mentioning at this weight at 125 pounds. With his wins over Master Giovanni, Alex Mackel. I mean, Brody Teske has had some, he's 8-1 this year. He's had some solid victories in his career, and with the recent transfer, this is his first real season he's able to compete. But that's why 125 is the most top heavy, because I don't know if any of these guys are going to be able to compete against Spencer Lee, who's just pinning top 5 ranked guys. At 157, I think that's the next top heavy weight, and it's really the top 3 guys. And you could make an argument after that 4 and 5 are definitely could compete at those top spots. But in the past year, we've seen that 157 has kind of been a runaway with these 3 guys, with Ryan Deacon, Hayden Hidley, and David Carr. So Deacon is the number 1 here, 2-0 on the year. He made his return last weekend at Wisconsin. It was cool to see him back on the mat, Deacon of Northwestern. He has wins over Hayden Hidley and David Carr. He has wins over those guys last season, not this season. He beat them both the same weekend at the Cliff Keen Las Vegas tournament. Now, he did actually wrestle each of these guys in the offseason. This is what's the interesting triangle here, and why 157 is very top heavy with these 3 guys. And there's still some talent after that. With Jesse De La Vecchia of Ryder, who's undefeated. Caleb Young, who had a great win over Brayton Lee this season so far. And actually does have a win, 2 sudden victory wins over Ryan Deacon, but those are a couple years ago. We're not sure how he would compete this year. I would think that he's still going to be solid, but the top 3, Deacon, as I mentioned, wrestled Hidley and Carr in the offseason. So how did those turn out? They wrestled at the Senior Nationals tournament back in, I believe it was October was when that was, and Hidley actually has a win over Deacon at the Senior Nationals. And Deacon had to win over Carr, and actually Carr ended up beating Deacon. So it was kind of a back and forth at the Senior Nationals there. So it's interesting because each of these guys is undefeated this year. David Carr has the best record, 12-0, but Hidley's 7-0. Each of these guys is going to make 157 fun to watch in the postseason, especially because each of these guys are in separate conferences and they're going to get the 1, 2, 3 seeds likely if they each win their conferences. Big 10, ACC, Big 12. Should be fun to see what happens there in the postseason. And then the last top-heavy weight class that I think there is this season is heavyweight. At 285 pounds is Gable Steveson, who has just been he's been crushing it as much as Spencer Lee's been crushing it. And the fact that Gable has 25 straight wins. His last loss was actually in the NCAA semifinals against Anthony Cassar of Penn State, who is the only guy still to beat Gable Steveson in his collegiate career. And the weight class is top heavy, mostly with Gable Steveson. Now, Mason Parris, you can make an argument that he is in that same tier as Gable, and I would understand you saying that because he is, but Steveson does have that win over Mason Parris in the past. Last year, Big Tens beat him 8-6. Parris was actually close. I believe he had him on his back at one point, or at least was close to getting him on his back. He has 2 wins over Anthony Cassiope, who's the number 3 guy, and a major over him this season. So Steveson has 100% bonus point percentage, and I think that's what puts him in that top tier. And he's people are asking the question, is who's going to win the Hod this year? Is it going to be Gable? Is it going to be Spencer Lee? Because each of these guys are just killing it this year. It's been so exciting to watch him. I mean, even beating Luffman and like I said, Cassiope, who are top-ranked guys, they have proven themselves, have put themselves ahead of everybody else. Now, I'm interested to see like a Matt Stencil, how he's going to compete at this weight, or a Colton Schultz, who's undefeated right now, the young guy who does have a win over Gannon Grumwell and Carter Isley. It'll be interesting to see how he does against some of these other guys at heavyweight. But 125, 157, and 285, I believe, are the most top-heavy and maybe most difficult to win weight classes this season. If you like this clip and are looking for more wrestling news and discussion, I recommend that you check out the full Fanco Wrestling Show podcast, which is live on this YouTube channel every single week. You can click here to subscribe to be notified of new and upcoming videos, or you can check out the Fanco Wrestling Show on your favorite podcasting platform to listen on the go. Stop stalling and start listening today.